Today, May 23, 2023 at 6 p.m. I call for order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Aliaga,
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here, Treasurer Brown,
Here.
Trustee Morocco,
Here.
Trustee Nalamothu, here, Trustee Ritchie,
Here.
and Trustee Stoyan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, or agenda, motion carries. So, board and public announcements. Members of the board or individuals in the audience that may have statement containing information about raising or coming event.
Can I make a comment about last week's meeting?
That'd be at the end.
That will be then, right?
About last week's meeting?
That's general conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
because
sorry.
it's all public
Yep.
comments, yeah. Okay.
I thought it was because it was a recent or upcoming event, sorry.
Okay. Sure, Paul.
If you have a dog and your dog does not yet have its license for 2023, I just want to remind everyone that the county will be coming around looking and checking to make sure folks have licenses for their dogs. And so if your dog is over 4 months old, it needs to be licensed. Again, the primary reason for this is to ensure rabies vaccinations are properly given to the animals. Rabies is a terrible thing. The United States is very fortunate to have very, very few deaths by rabies compared to the rest of the world. And the reason for that is because we require licenses for our dogs. So we sell them at the township treasurer's office. You can come in and pick them up here, and you just need to bring your proof of your rabies certificate for the dog. That's it.
Okay. Clerk Newbeck?
I have a couple. Want to remind everyone that it's solicitor season. Any solicitor that comes to your door must have been registered first with the clerk's office, and they should be wearing clearly visible, proper photo ID. And if you have any questions on who is registered with us, we do have a list of them on the clerk's department page on our website, and there's a list of the active solicitors that are registered with us. And I also wanted to announce that on Monday, June 5th, there'll be a water main project informational meeting that'll be here in the Town Hall Auditorium. This will be for residents who live on Parview, Park Lake Drive, Washington Street, East Church, East Lawn, Rose Lawn Avenue, and Cherry Lawn Avenue. And this is regarding 2.5 miles of new water main that will be installed that the township was awarded a grant on. This would be just those residents, and those residents have also received an informational letter in the mail regarding it as well. And that's all I have.
Okay. Any other?
I just want to congratulate the graduates tonight that are graduating Clarkson High School from Pine Knob, you know, and hopefully some of them will stick around and fill in some of our workforce here in town that we need.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else?
On that note, I'm going to say thanks to all the, or congrats to all the graduates from Everest Collegiate who graduated on Sunday. Same thing, yeah.
Good.
Very good.
Very nice. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Public comments. Anyone from the audience would like to address to the board? Anyone online? Okay, moving on. We don't have public hearings, so we have a presentations and report. We have a presentation today for the 4-day work week pilot by our labor attorney, Nancy. If you can,
Where's she at? I can't see her.
Hello.
Hi.
Nancy.
hi, Nancy.
Okay, so last week at the board meeting, there was a motion made, and part of that motion discussed providing an update to the board on the 4-day work week at this meeting. So that's what I'm going to do now, is walk through a little update on what's happened since the prior meeting. Just as a recap, the proposed pilot period would be township operating Monday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The idea would be to have that start June 5th. And the reason for the June 5th start date is because not only is it the beginning of the month, but it's also the beginning of a pay period. So that would be helpful in looking at if time off is used, if days off, things like that for starting on June 5th. And then the pilot would go through December, and there'd be an evaluation period. And the idea behind December is that that gives a full 6 months of the pilot to evaluate, to determine whether we would revert back to a 5-day week or continue as is. We talked about the potential benefits to residents, which included, early access to services for the parents dropping their kids off, contractors, vendors that need to get their issues taken care of before the start of everybody else's regular workday at 8 a.m. so they could come in early. And then just, workers on their way into work to be able to do it on their way. Same thing with on the way home, extended access so that when you're running your errands on your way home. And then also less time between closure and then the meeting. So folks might come in and take care of business, and we'll see some more folks sticking around for meetings as well as the employees. And then also delivery of service. The main goal we talked about a lot last week was it started off as a benefit to employees to make this an employer that is attractive because of benefits like this where work-life balance is appreciated and understanding that the township has some constraints that it puts on itself to be responsible with salaries and spending, and you can't just give raises or hand out money. So this was a way to add another benefit that wasn't intended to cause any changes in what the township pays out. Operational considerations. Now this is talking about how are the directors going to manage a 4-day work week. That was one of the questions that was presented by board members. And basically, it would continue as is. The directors would have the autonomy to run their departments as they do now over 4 days, regular business hours, instead of 5. Directors would remain accountable and available during off hours and weekends, just as they are now, to respond to any types of issues. There were questions about things that came up in the meeting about, is this a way to just give some of the electeds extra time off or our salaried employees more time off? And that is not the objective at all. And if you break down and look at it, the reality of it, that change in the 4 days is not going to change the amount of work hours that are put in by your director, elected official level folks. They're 40-hour expected to work, but that's not really how it goes. Those folks are salaried and they're exempt from overtime requirements. So whether they work 20, 40, 100 hours, their pay is the same. And they'll still be available, and especially, I don't have to tell you guys, just look at the electeds. They're already, the officers are already working in their respective departments, and then they have these meetings and then resident meetings, so there really won't be a reduction in hours, just days you're expected to be open for business, okay? But the directors will continue as they do now. The time off bank conversion, so employees have PTO banks, paid time off, it's used for personal time, sick time, things like that, and then they have a vacation bank. And the way the contracts are written is it says employees get X number of days based on years of service. The proposal is to change a day to 8 hours, not 10, so that employees will accumulate hours that then they can use for time off for doctor's appointments, vacations, just as they do now. So there won't be a change into what they can accrue for vacation and PTO time. For holiday observations, we would look at what day is the holiday observed, and then how can we make that work with the 4-day work schedule. So holidays that would fall on a Friday, their observation date would just move to a different date, and the proposed idea that we started with was move those days to the week of Christmas so that you don't have to close extra days since you're already off Monday and Tuesday. Now you don't have to open for just Wednesday and Thursday and then shut down again Friday. So that's where that idea came from. One of the things that was very clear in the motion at the meeting last week was that this is the green light to continue discussions, not to solidify anything. And the idea is to approve a June 5th start, but it was very clear that we need to provide at least a 2-week notice to residents especially and employees so that they can know that the township isn't going to be available on Fridays. And we talked a lot about, we'll get into that in another slide. But that all requires negotiating that agreement with the union, of course, right? So we wanted to give you an update on that. What we need to do is develop a letter of understanding with the Independence Workforce Association, the union, to talk about their absence plan conversions. As we talked about, 1 day would equal 8 hours. The holidays, we would adjust the observation date. And then there's also language in their contract that promises them overtime if they work more than 8 hours in a single day. So obviously, we would adjust that so that it would go for the 10-hour day so that they're not automatically earning 2 hours of overtime every day. Our next steps with the union are to review the status of the LOU. The union is absolutely on board, excited about talking about this. Their representative in council is managing some medical issues, and so we haven't been able to meet the way we would like to. We're hoping that there'll be clearance for us to have a formal sit-down by Thursday and get something signed, if not possibly sooner. And then the IWA's members would weigh in on whether they wanted to participate. And then that would allow us to get notice out, and hopefully to get notice out to employees and residents no later than May 26th. That's the goal, with the understanding if we cannot provide 2 weeks' notice, the start date of the pilot would potentially be pushed back following signing an LOU with the union. Okay. Another topic that came out was, how are we going to reach out to residents? How are we going to make sure that they know what's going on? And so these are just some samples of some of the things that would be done. Obviously, announcements of this township meeting, the other commissions that the township oversees, all of the social medias. Individuals can personally forward it from the township site after that. Township Times, the newspaper, the Independence Television. When it goes out, when the tax notices go out, there'll be a reminder, as well as any water, sewer invoices that are sent out already. Word of mouth, signage. We want to make sure there's lots of signage, not only here at the township, but at the other facilities throughout the township that are owned, like the parks, by the things like that, so that folks would have that. And then the idea is also to have a QR code with that signage so that folks could, if they don't want to grab the little card or the flyer, they would take them to the website and they'd be able to get all that information about that. So trying to figure out all the ways we can be as comprehensive as possible in getting out notices, and these are just the starting points. One of the other key conversation points from the last meeting was about wanting to know what are the deliverables that are going to come out of this pilot. And so this is just a sampling of some of them, the things that we would measure, and that would be changes in operational expenses, pulling data from the past several years during that June through December month period and saying, what was our utility usage? How much are we spending on gas in the vehicles? Are we going to see utility usage go down because we're closed one day? Are we going to see gas and other equipment costs go down because they're only being used 4 days a week in some instances? So we want to look at those, have some comparables, tracking customer interactions, how many more folks are coming in before 8 a.m. and after 5 p.m., which are the current hours. So looking at those, how many calls are we getting during those days when we're not available? And then also, obviously, we want to measure customer satisfaction. So how many contacts are we getting? We'll set up a designated email account. How many contacts are we getting through there? What kind are they? Are they repeat? How are they resolved? How long does it take to resolve? And then the number of contacts from folks that don't want to use the internet and email, and they could turn in a paper version of that. So how are the concerns and coming to us, and then what are they about? And those things would be measured there. We talked about that this is not new, that this is not novel, that this is very successful in not just private industries. I think when I first came, I talked to you a little bit about the trend, that there's actually been legislation proposed in other states to move to a 4-day work week. It kind of got stalled when COVID came around, but we're seeing that pick back up on a federal and then other state levels. But these are communities just in the surrounding area that are already operating on a 4-day work week, and these range from very large communities that have 70,000 down to much smaller communities, and they are all operating on a 4-day work week. Most of them having closure at 5 or 5:30, and most of them starting at 7:30 or 7. So our next steps to implement would be to secure those agreements with the unions. We cannot do anything until we have Our union's on board, making sure that while we don't need an agreement with the IFF because their contract already speaks to a 4-day, we would of course provide them notice as a courtesy to because they're our labor partners. And then our non-representative employees, they are mandated and governed by the employee manual. And so the formal changes to the manual, we wouldn't take those until we determine whether this pilot was successful or not. So you'd see actual language changes, after the pilot. But until then, this would all be shared with employees so that they understand what the changes are. Notice to residents, again, all the ways we talked about, wanting to start by June 5th, evaluate after a full 6-month period so that we can finalize or revert back to that 5-day week. And that is it. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Nancy.
You are most
Any
welcome.
question from board members?
I just had a comment.
Sure.
Just thought it was interesting, as I came in this morning, just after 7:30, we had a contractor waiting for us to open until 8 o'clock, sat in his truck out front. And so I thought that was interesting. I don't know if they've mentioned anything to the contractors with the proposed pilot, but we already had somebody that was at least waiting probably 20, 25 minutes for the doors to open, so I thought that was a positive. Will be a positive, strong positive.
Okay, thank you. Claire Newbeck, anyone else? Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. Moving on. Consent agenda. Request to approve the Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes of May 9, 2023, and a special meeting minutes of May 16, 2023. Request to approve the May 16, 2023 check run of $618,084.45. Ratify the May 12, 2023 payroll of $311,358.50 and the May 2023 EFT activity of $100,000, $160.14. And request to adopt the resolution number 2023-006, Oakland County 2023 interim local transportation program. And number 4, request to adopt the resolution number 2023-007, Oakland County Cooperative Agreement, Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program for 2024, 25, 26. I need a motion for the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion, the consent agenda passed, so, all right. Regular business. Request to adopt the notice of intent resolution number 2023, Dave McKee, or DPW Director. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. So just real quick, as the board is aware, the DPW applied for a low-interest loan through the state of Michigan's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund to address a PFAS issue that we had at the township with one of our wells. We applied for over $5 million to install new water main throughout the township. The public announcement that Carrie read off is directly related to that project. We want to get the word out on that. So as this program went along, as in our application, we did apply, like I said, the state of Michigan is running this program through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. We have every intentions of doing that, and we'd get bonds and we would sell bonds. So along comes the bipartisan infrastructure law, the federal law. So part of the bipartisan infrastructure law stated that emerging contaminants for such issues, exactly what we have, would receive 100% loan forgiveness. And I have tonight with me is Jeff Arnoff from Miller Canfield, who is our bond counsel. So he can answer any questions that we may have about this notice of intent that we need to do. This is a process that we need to go through because through this loan, or let me rephrase it, through this 100% loan forgiveness, the state is running the program through their Drinking Water State Revolving Fund for checks and balances. So tonight, we're looking to get a part of that process is to get a resolution for a notice of intent resolution to continue moving forward with this project. We did, like I said, we did engage with bond counsel to comply with state requirements for the program. So if there's any questions about why we're doing this or how, Mr. Arnoff is here, and he is more than capable of answering the questions. He's an expert in this. He's been doing it a while, and he's with Miller Canfield. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to help or to answer.
Any question, board member? No?
That's
Trustee
kinda one-
Ritchie.
It's not so much about the bond, but just the project itself. Like, it's water mains we're putting in, like, say, Parview was one of the roads you're putting down the
Correct.
length of Parview. Are you also putting like stubs in, like for side streets and stuff like
Yes,
that? or-
the projects will consist of installing, like Carrie mentioned, I think about 2.5 miles of water main. On Parview, it's gonna be from Andersonville Road all the way to Dixie Highway. Every lot on Parview will have a pre-tap for water connections. So the people that live there, if they wish to connect, they can connect right there. There'll be a curb box in their yard. We're doing that, that was intentional, we wanna do that, so it's, if they're putting this in pre-tap, we call it pre-tapping every lot. So if they wanna hook up, it's right there, we don't have to come out and dig up the road, dig up somebody's yard, do it all during the project. And that is true with the other section of this project, which is north of Walden, which is on East Lawn, Park Lake Drive,
Roselawn,
Rose Lawn, thank you, and another one too, I apologize for, I can't remember them.
Cherry Lawn.
Cherry Lawn, thank you. So
some
same
of the-
thing there.
Some of those have like side streets, or are we like stubbing if they wanna go, say like on Parview, there's 2 or 3 side streets?
Yes.
Is there like a stub if they wanna go into that neighborhood?
Part of the design phase that we have Mike Lufkin from DLZ Engineering who's designing the project. As we go up Parview, part of the thing, like a Wellesley Terrace is a great example that comes in there, I believe it's Wellesley
Right.
Terrace. At that intersection, when we put the water main, there will be a T there. We're gonna have a T and ready to go in case down the road, if people on Wellesley Terrace decide they want a water main run down their street, we're gonna have a connection point ready to go. Just be valved off and with a blind flange. And we're going to do that as much as possible for all the other side streets that come in right there.
Okay, so that's good, we're doing future planning. and
Absolutely.
As part of the installation too. so-
Absolutely. And on the other section of the project on Cherry Lawn and all up there, we're going to go through the swamp and we're gonna create a loop system right there, because there's some dead-end roads there. Oops. There's a dead-end road. We're gonna go through there and connect it to the water main on Clarkson Road, so we have nice continuation of water, so water quality stays good. We have redundancy, not to mention there's gonna be fire hydrants installed, so that's gonna help all residents there. So they have fire protection, so hopefully possible it could help out with homeowners insurance. And the fire department's pretty happy about that as well.
Very good.
Okay, trustee Morocco?
So you're actually gonna install curb boxes, not just put stubs out?
There's gonna be a curb box right in the yard, shut off.
Okay, and where in there, all these people are gonna, is it at the road right of way? How far into their yards you're gonna be disturbing?
Typically, we go to the property line. So, the water main will be in the road right of way. Typically, the tap will make the 1-inch connection tap, that's what we're gonna do for single-family homes. And we'll take that curb and the shut off there, be right to the property line. That way, we don't go on private property.
So how do you determine whether or not, which side of their driveway to put their tap on? Because if they're, all their plumbing is already plumbed to the one corner for their well,
Mhm.
we don't wanna be on the other side of the house. Is that, that would be probably a logistical nightmare, but is there any, like, if the well is on the right side of the driveway, would you put the tap on the right side of the driveway? If you could, because that would be a real hassle later to, bore under the driveway to get, to tie the water in for them in the future,
Typically, what we do is we'll install the curb box, as we call it, the curb box in line with the well. We try to go, if the well's right here in the front yard, we try to make the tap so it's kind of right in line. That way, if they decide to hook up,
Right.
what they do is they disconnect the line from the well, splice in, and they just connect right there, and they just have minimal plumbing to do. There's gonna be instances where it might be a problem, but with our contractors, and when we do that, we're pretty self-conscious about that. If the homeowner comes out and says, hey, I want it right here, we'll put it right where they want it. We did that on Sunnyside Drive, which we just completed that project. as
Are
well.
those houses all on sewer currently?
Everything on Parview is not. There's no sewer on Parview.
Oh,
There is
so-
sewer on the subdivision north of Walden.
So you could have all the front yards could be all septic fields, and the
It's
well could be in
possible.
the backyard.
It's possible. But again, That's what the engineering, engineering's very well.
I just
over that.
wondered how much effort went into trying to mirror it to the existing conditions of the residents, which I could see would be troublesome. but-
Yeah, I mean, we do our best to make sure that, they're put in the prime location.
Okay.
And believe me.
We did use Oakland County well records to try to establish those locations, but like Dave said, there's gonna be instances where you've got large historic trees that you don't wanna dig those up just to put a service in. So we'll have to make accommodations to make sure those are moved over and located appropriately.
But from the county well permit, you could see where the fields were on the properties and stuff like that.
Where the wells were.
Where the wells were.
Oh, where the wells were,
Yeah.
okay.
Unfortunately, some of the septic field records are not.
Right, oh, no, I get it.
And we don't keep those.
I
So.
know.
You scared me.
Oh,
That's all I have.
But,
Sounds good, Dave. Thank you.
so we're looking forward to it. This is going to be great project, and, $5 million, 100% loan forgiveness, and that's what we want to emphasize. It's 100% loan forgiveness.
These gentlemen are gonna pay the difference if we have to pay anything out of pocket, right?
Of course, they will not. It's a hard no, Ron.
Hard no.
I don't know.
So is there any other questions? Anything
Sure.
I can help?
Any
with
other
this?
questions? Treasurer Brown?
Just a comment, in the, I don't know, 11 years that I've been on the board, the DPW's really made an effort to make sure we take care of our infrastructure related to water and sewer. And you can read in the paper just about every week about some community who's in big trouble because they have all this deferred maintenance on their water and sewer systems. I mean, some of them are gonna file bankruptcy. I think there's one coming soon because of those types of issues. And, I think it's important for residents to understand the efforts that have been made, not just by this board, but boards going back 20 years, that we make sure our system is in good condition. And even with that, our rates are still pretty decent. Because what we don't ever want to have happen is get a giant bill and suddenly everyone's rates have to go up. We just don't want to do that to residents, and you guys do a great job at handling that.
So I appreciate that, and it can't be done. It's a cooperative effort, without, board members and the community and electeds and everybody helping us out. It's better to be proactive than reactive. We try to do that as best we can and as fiscally responsible. So it's been a good marriage. I'm happy that we're making some progress and doing things.
Thank you. Anyone from the public would like to, any comments from the public? Anyone from online that would like to address to the board? No? All right. Anyone would like to make a motion?
I'll move to adopt the notice of intent resolution number 2023-008 for the fiscal year 2023 fourth quarter, was it drinking water
State
revolving fund, water main project for the Charter Township of Independence as presented, and authorize the clerk to publish the notice of intent for same.
Support.
Okay. It's a roll call, right? Okay.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown?
Yes?
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
Yes.
Trustee Ritchie?
Yes.
Trustee Stoyan?
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga?
Yes,
The motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thanks. Dave, you just stay there. Yeah, you got the next one too. That's right.
Let me see if I can help you out here, 'cause this is.
I wanted him to put that back to,
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. Randolph, for coming tonight.
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming tonight.
Maybe hit escape?
Escape on the keyboard or something.
Here, let's just, okay. I'm gonna minimize everything. That works better. I was gonna try to turn that off, but
I just thought we want to see if people are online. There we go. Thank you.
okay.
Sure.
Oh, you read, I didn't know if you read the.
Sure, next, yes. Is the request to approve the prepayment for Oakland Macomb drainage. This is City's 2020B bond, known as a Norc Interceptor.
Sorry about that.
No, don't worry. No, don't worry.
So, just a little background. So all the sewage that comes out of Independence Township goes to the Clinton-Oakland Interceptor. The Clinton-Oakland Interceptor flows east and becomes the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor. The pipe gets bigger as it goes east. Somewhere around Sterling Heights, Freedom Hill, it turns right and goes straight down to the Great Lakes Water Authority and the main sewage treatment plant. It's in the city of Detroit. So to make improvements, the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor, which we are part of all the communities in Oakland County and all the communities in Macomb, there's system improvements that are going to be made. Great Lakes Water Authority, or I'm sorry, the Water Resource Commission, and is in charge of the maintenance for the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor. So tonight, what they're doing is they propose they're going to drop $15.5 million in bonds to make repairs. All the communities in the Clinton-Oakland system are responsible for 33% of that amount. And of that, which is approximately a little over 5 million. So of that 33%, or a little over 5 million, all the communities in Independence, all the communities in Oakland County are a part of that. Independence Township's I think it was 2.46%. Double check here, I just want to make sure my numbers are right. Yes, 2.4213%, so they broke it down 4 digits. So we're responsible for 2.4% of the $5 million. And that includes the village of Clarkston. I want to make that very clear. That includes the village of Clarkston. So our assessment for this bond is approximately $371,000. We intend to prepay our full amount instead of bonding it out. The county, the Water Resource Commission, gives each community the option to prepay all of it in advance of your assessment, or you may bond it out over 20 years at 4%. I talked with Rick Yeager in great detail about this once we were notified about this, and we do have enough in our cash reserves to prepay and avoid over $180,000 in interest charged over 20 years. And quite frankly, my contacts at the Water Resource Commissioner told us that of all the communities except one in the Oakland-Macomb, or I should say in the Clinton-Oakland system, are prepaying. Some folks are well over $1 million too. They're just prepaying at 4%. It's a lot of money, so they're going to avoid that interest charge. So tonight, I'm looking to get approval from the board to prepay the amount. And like I said, this includes the village of Clarkston. Now, the village of Clarkston's portion of this amount is approximately $17,000, a little more than $17,000. I met with the village manager. They have every intention of prepaying that amount once we send them the bill. We will prepay Oakland County. We're going to send them a bill for the $17,000. They're going to pay it all. So we'll get their money. If they elect not to, then I do have that in there that we will charge them interest. We will still prepay, but that amount that they don't, if they decide not to prepay us, we're going to treat that as an amortization, which is allowed through the ordinance that we have right now for customers that want to connect and they want to pay off over a period of time. They don't have any intentions of doing that. I met in person with, like I said, the city manager and the treasurer there, and they verbally just told me we're going to prepay it. So tonight we're looking to get approval to prepay this loan amount, or this bond amount, and get to the county as soon as possible. The county wants to have their money by June 26th. And that's pretty much it. I know it's a lot to swallow, but if there's any questions, I can.
Sure.
Paul.
Treasurer Brown?
How do we come up with the 3%?
The 3% was based on the ordinance that we have right now for amortization that's allowed in the code of ordinances. It does say 3%. I think it should be.
I thought it was a variable rate that was based on.
This was, the language that for the 3% also came from when we did this before. We had $1 million that we prepaid, and we did 3% then.
So I would just say.
I could change that if
Maybe
need
we
be.
can talk about it, maybe we could talk about it tomorrow or something.
I would.
Because right now, interest rates are significantly higher. If we had not prepaid it, we would have been charged 4%, but the bigger issue for me is that residents who want to put in the capital connection charges, they're paying 6%.
At least
So
right
I
now.
don't, so I don't feel like we should be charging a different entity half the rate our residents have to pay. And again,
I
they're
agree
probably
with
not
you.
gonna go there, But I always try to think in terms of what our residents pay for their capital connection charges, and if that's 6%, then I don't think we should allow some other community to pay half that.
I agree with you, and this was really quick to get to the board, because
Yep.
we wanted to prepay it. But
It's a
I
small
agree
amount
with
too,
you.
but-
But we're allowed to do it,
Yeah.
the interest rate,
Yeah.
we'll talk more and.
Awesome, thank
And,
you.
can do that for sure.
Okay, any other question from board members?
It's not really
Sure.
a question, but I just
Claire,
think for the residents, you might want to explain why we're prepaying for the city of the village, so they understand.
So all the sewage that comes out of the city of the village comes into Independence Township, because they're right in the middle of our township essentially. So the way the county bills sewage is by flow. They don't measure the flow that comes out of the village, so to speak. But they do measure everything that comes out of Independence Township, and that includes the village. So the calculation they came up with, and I do believe I put it in the MAVE to where the village accounts for 4.765% of all the sewage that comes out of Independence Township is based on the REU count.
It seems light.
So that's where we came up with that percentage. That is the fairest way, that's we did it before with that. So an REU is each, in a single family home is one REU, and then we have the total amount of REUs in the township.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave, that's a good explanation. Thanks for the question. Yes, Treasurer Brown?
Just relative to the calculation, as to whether or not that amount is right, yet people should keep in mind that I think most people in the village are on the sewer system.
Correct.
Correct? Probably, but that's not the same in the township, right? So there's a lot fewer people in the township. What percentage of the township is not on sewer?
Oh,
Population-wise, we have 38,000 residents.
population-wise,
Is it
yeah,
half?
population,
It's probably half, 2/3 maybe is on water, is
maybe.
on sewer, maybe.
Is on sewer, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's included in figuring out this calculation,
Correct.
right? So,
That's correct.
Okay.
While we're on the subject,
Trustee
mind.
Morocco?
where'd we get the 6% rate for the residents at? Why are we charging them 6%?
So typically, when there's an amortization, so we would use, it is 3% by ordinance plus, Paul, what's what they call the AFR? or
the applicable federal rate.
The applicable
Can I-
federal rate.
Let me jump on it
Please,
real quick.
please. That's
So-
your language.
Our ordinance says we're gonna charge the applicable federal rate plus 3%,
Correct.
okay? The applicable federal rate is the rate the federal government says you have to charge someone that amount at least, or what you're doing for them is a gift. That's where that comes, and it's variable. It moves up and down depending on where interest rates are. So it's actually quite a bit higher now. So one of our things was 6% was the applicable rate, and we ended up at 6 for most of the time. The county charges the same thing. We don't want to be too low, because if we're too low, no one's encouraged to get it paid off faster. We don't want to really be a bank, but we do that to help our residents get what they need. So if we go through the ordinances, and you could come by, I could go through it with you. and show
No,
you
I
what it
just
is.
wondered if there was a way that we could do it for less for the residents. That's what I was getting at.
It's,
Not why, because, I mean, we're trying to encourage for the wells and private,
Yeah.
encourage them to use the system if they're close enough. I mean, there's not a lot, there's a lot of people out of the water district, but the ones that are, I just wondered if that was how you, what do you think? Is that
no, I think it's an
a
excellent
fair
tool.
amount?
Yes, very much so. Because it's expensive, don't get me wrong. And without it, they'd have to come up with all the money, right? I think it's a great mechanism for the residents to amortize a fairly decent
How long?
expenditure, 10 years.
Okay.
You could go up to
Right.
10 years.
This was for 20, so you're talking 10 for homeowner taps?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yep.
Okay.
And this is the reference I use in here for the village is based on our ordinance.
And what's an REU? Is that what you're basing it on? So they're buying an REU long-term, or is there more involved than that?
No, REU is the multiplier you would use to figure out your charges for specifically capital connection charges.
Okay.
A single-family home is one REU.
Right, that's what I mean. So what's the
Yeah.
cost of an REU? Or what's the cost of a tap? Do you have a flat rate, or do you?
Well, the
'cause-
REU comes into the capital connection fee, which we have. For water, it's $2,600. For sewer, it's $27. For township residents.
So if a resident wanted to tap the new water line going down Parview,
Mhm.
it's $2,600 approximately, or no?
Don't use Parview because
Okay.
we have, that's prepaid. So there will be, I'm gonna come to the board with some other things on
All
that
right,
to
let's
get
say a
approval on.
resident that has water available to
Yes.
them, their well fails, they'd like to tap in. Are we around $2,600?
It's $2,600 for the capital connection, $54 for a permit, $54 for a meter installation, and $315 for the water meter.
Okay,
That's our fees.
right. And to be clear, that
And-
includes
and the
no
tap.
water lines to the house.
That includes no water. And there's a
Right.
tap charge, because there's, we would do the tap. If it's a short tap, if the water main's in the front, it's $900. If it's across the street, we're at $1,200.
Okay, so there is a tap fee for the township, even though you have the curb box in, because doesn't or do you just
No.
inspect it, or
No, this is
no curb box?
no curb box.
Okay.
That's why we're using this grant, like for Parview.
We don't-
We're
right.
doing all that. So
That's
when
getting
people want
curb
to
box.
connect, we are not going to charge them a tapping fee.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
all right.
Any member of
Thank
the
you.
public would like to address to the board? Any question? Yeah, can you come to the podium, please? State your name and address.
Tony Jeans, 8795 Maplewood Avenue.
Mhm.
We have a question. We were talking about the property there on Clarkston Road, if it happened to open up into a park.
Oh.
It brought up the,
It is about this,
it's relative to the tax
The-
question, actually.
okay, sure.
That's what brought it up. We're just wondering, do we get charged or taxed the same on our county taxes as, or township taxes as people that are on sewer, if you're on a well and septic? Does everybody pay the same there, or is that, we're offset because we don't, if our well or septic goes bad, it comes all out of our pocket, where if you're on the city sewer, the city or the township maintains those lines?
Can I answer?
Yeah,
So-
did you, if you followed me, sir?
Yeah, so, you know, water and sewer fund, we're strictly funded by user fees. Okay, so there's no tax money at all that comes to water and sewer functions.
Okay.
So we are essentially self-sufficient with water and sewer funds that come in from people that are customers.
Okay.
So I can't answer your tax question on that. I'm not the
Well,
assessor. I apologize for that.
You did. That's a good question. So nowhere on your tax bill will it ever have anything related to water and sewer, with one exception. So people who are on the water and sewer, they don't have anything on their tax bill about water and sewer either. It's paid with a separate bill, unless they don't pay the bill. If they don't pay the bill, it gets put on their
Right.
tax and we collect it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, your question, yeah, so you would never, if somebody got a sewer system and you were not, you would never see charges on your bills for water and sewer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Right, anyone online that would like to address to the board? Okay, all right. So roll call. But I need actually need a motion.
Can I ask a quick question? I'll make
Sure.
the motion. Do you have to change the way it's worded if you might change what the village is doing?
The percentage.
The percentage on the village you talked about?
I'm
Do I
not
have to
opposed
change
to
how
that.
it's approved, or?
I'm not opposed at the will of the board. If they decide, you could throw something, if they
Where's the
decide to
motion?
if they decide to
Right here.
finance their
Motion.
assessment, the interest rate will be modified
Second.
You can
recommendation.
say,
to be more consistent.
assuming that
But they,
it's
like I said, they do intend to 100% prepay it, so it might be a moot point, but I think
Right.
Okay.
if it's something that you believe that we should have in there,
Have they taken it to the council yet for
I think their
approval?
meeting is next week, or
Oh, okay.
we're in opposite,
Okay.
So
Okay.
the 6%'s not included in the motion or the resolution, right?
No, it's
So-
not. I put that in there.
Yeah.
It's not a placeholder, but that's the direction we would go to. Yeah, it's not part
Okay.
of the motion. The motion is to prepay the full bond assessment, and then we can discuss later if they decide to
Got it.
finance it through us.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll make a motion to approve the prepayment of the Oakland Macomb Drainage District Series 2020B, 2023 issue bond known as the North Interceptor East Arm Contract Number 2 in the amount of $371,452 for Independence Township, and adopt resolution number 2023009 as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion has made and seconded. Is roll call?
Treasurer Brown,
Yes?
Trustee Morocco,
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu,
Yes.
Trustee Ritchie,
Yes.
Trustee Stolian,
Yes.
Supervisor Aliaga,
Yes.
and Clerk Newbeck, yes. The motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, next, or Assessor Kim Finley. Please come to the podium. It's our request to approve the 2023 budget amendment, number 21st, property assessment appeal, full tribunal litigation.
Good evening, Township Board members.
Good evening.
With the growth in the township and the real estate transactions having increased significantly in the last 2 years, we're seeing an increase in the appeal work, which is normally very quiet. We're averaging now about 8 a year. Some unusual circumstances and some things that are going to trial. So I am here to ask for a budget adjustment of $12,000 for our legal expense in the assessing department.
Okay. Any questions from board members?
I just have one.
Sure. Clerk Newbeck?
Is this an estimate, or is this just to cover current costs, or are you estimating more, and, or do you think you'll need to come back, I guess?
If one of the large apartment complexes go to trial, there may be some excessive trial costs. There's also an opportunity to get a $2 million increase in that case, depending on the judge and how he rules. So that may offset legal fees. For the most part, right now, I need to cover 2 contracts for a professional appraiser to come in to Oakland Insurance Building and to a home on Woodhull Lake. Both are in entire tribunal, not small claims.
Okay.
So that's the bulk of it. Some other issues with Court of Appeals cases ate up most of my budget. And if we ever want to go into private session, I can discuss those cases.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Anyone from the public? No? Anyone online that would like to address to the board? Okay.
I make a motion to approve the 2023 budget amendment number 21 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion have made and seconded by trustee Alamothu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Good luck.
carried.
All right, thank you.
Kim. And the next, we have our treasurer, Paul Brown.
Thank you. I think roughly 11 years ago, 12 years ago, somewhere around there, the board at the time formed an investment advisory committee. One of the treasurer's responsibilities by statute is to manage the township's investments. The monies we're holding, really taxpayer funds. There are, and I've talked about this at length at lots of meetings, there are very strict rules that are followed about where that money can be. We don't invest in stocks. We don't go out and do crazy stuff. The number one rule for us is to protect the principal. It's not our job to try and go make money. This is the taxpayers' money, and we're using it to provide services. This committee was formed back then because we decided not to have a paid financial advisor. At the time, we were paying between the advisor and a managed account about $35,000 a year. And because all we were ever doing is buying, for the most part, government-backed securities, treasuries and mortgage-backed securities that are backed by the United States, it didn't make sense because those are the safest investments in the world. So we got rid of those advisors and we formed an advisory committee so we could have some residents and one other board member who meet quarterly to look at our investment policy, look a little bit more detailed at what investments I'm buying, and discuss strategy going forward. And then to present some of, in our talk, when we are reinstituting this, was that we would bring minutes from that meeting with any recommendations from the committee to the board. So I do now have 5 resident members who have agreed to be a part of it, and we've already appointed trustee Stoyan to be a member of that. And so this motion will just ask to have these folks appointed. Questions?
Okay. All right, so you're gonna have just 5 residents?
Correct.
Okay.
I think at least one of these residents was on the board previously too.
2 of them.
Rob Whitcomb.
And Dodie McGee was on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So if no questions, I'll make a
Okay.
motion.
Sure.
Move to appoint Dodie, and by the way, what I did on here is I've got 2 of them expiring in a year and a half, and then the other 3 expire the following year, so we can get a little bit of rotation of some coming off or being reappointed and not all at once. So we have Dodie McGee, move to appoint Dodie McGee as regular member of the Investment Advisory Committee for the remainder of a 2-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Move to appoint Robert Whitcomb as regular member of the Investment Advisory Committee for the remainder of a 2-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2024.
I'll support.
Second?
She did.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next, Paul.
Move to appoint Paul Haleski as regular member of the Investment Advisory Committee for the remainder of a 3-year term scheduled to expire December 31st, 2025.
Okay, any support?
Support.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next.
Move to appoint Craig Braun as regular member of the Investment Advisory Committee for the remainder of a 3-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2025.
Support.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next one.
Move to appoint our friend Joseph Sucher, who is here with us today, as a regular member of the Investment Advisory Committee for the remainder of a 3-year term scheduled to expire December 31st, 2025.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, we don't have a closed session tonight. Communication, future items. I have a report from the fiscal 2023, actual to budget comments for a period ending on April 30, 2023. Report of Oakland County Sheriff Department, monthly report, April 2023. Minutes, information, technology, oversight, committee, April 4, 2023. And the minutes from Safety Path Advisory Committee, April 12, 2023. Next, board member comments.
I'd like to comment, please.
Sure, trustee Stoney.
So, and I want to be careful how I say this, because I don't want to come off as accusing, but I've got to say how I feel. Last week, we had our meeting about the 4-day work week for township employees, and the circumstance was that 2 of the trustees, myself and Terry, were unable to attend. And during the meeting, a resident suggested that, given that the 3 full-time elected officials would directly benefit from this passing, that you recuse yourself from the vote, but you didn't. And then on top of that, the 2 trustees that were here suggested multiple times to delay the vote by 1 week to the next full-time, or to the next regularly scheduled trustee meeting, which would have been tonight, so that we could have potentially full board to weigh in on it. Now, I don't want to say that this is the motivation behind the action, because I don't know what you guys were thinking or feeling, but the way it could appear is that, given the circumstance, the 3 elected officials at the moment could push it through regardless of how all 4 trustees felt about the situation, and you decided to go ahead with the circumstance and push it through. Now, not that it was a bad choice to do it, but the way that we pushed it through, given the circumstance, I feel like it would have been a better move to build trust to have delayed the vote by 1 week so that we could all weigh in on the issue.
Okay.
Did it?
That's it.
Okay. I got something to say. So I wasn't clear what we were talking about tonight. Now I got a couple things. I was under the understanding that technically the elected officials and the head of personnel don't need the board to vote to go to a 5-day work week. Correct me if I'm wrong.
4-day.
4-day, I'm sorry. So I was told that, and I don't remember who, but but I'm glad that we had the meeting that Ron and I wanted for clarity. Then we had the presentation today, which is good. We did give the residents an opportunity to see last Tuesday's meeting, so that if there were, they would have, that was our intent, was to just make sure we gave them enough information to come and speak. So, I agree with what you said about how it went down, but I'm not. I mean, it's a big deal that that's being considered, and I've talked to a lot of people over this thing, and a lot of people called me after that Tuesday's workshop. So I'm glad that means somebody was watching it, so they had some questions. I really haven't. Besides the way that I'm not from the way it went down. I'm not clear on the procedure, but I do want to say that I can't find a reason to be opposed to it with all of the information that I have now, talking to directors, talking to employees, knowing our situation with needing to hire good directors and people in positions. I know that we don't have the report back as how we compare to other townships. But I'm pretty sure that we're not on the high end of the pay scale, because I know of employees that have left for more money. So I think that's true. Not having those facts, but being a business owner, anything we can use to encourage quality people without it costing the taxpayers more money, I think is what you've got to do, and you got to be aggressive about it. I deal with a lot of townships and municipalities that are on 4-day already and have for years. It's a pain in the butt, but something you got to adjust to it. You learn how to work around it. I haven't heard any complaints from people that work about it. So the people that have complained to me are people that are available and are flexible to come anytime. So I didn't carry a lot of weight, because they can come on Monday, So I struggled with it. I pushed back a little bit to get the info, because I was definitely not on board before we have been getting this information that we've been getting. And I'm glad that we did get the information. It's the way of the future, and if that's what it takes for us to get good people and retain people, because we're competing against the 4-day workweek people, then I support the concept and the trial for it, based on that.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. I would like to say a few things. So, and thank you, Paul, for that, and thank you, everyone here. And thank you for you guys coming. This is called a board members comment, but sure. Just so you guys are aware, this idea came to Paul and Carrie to me. It looks to me a great idea. I says, hey, let's take a look. We brought people that knows what they're talking about, people that knows about these issues, about this idea. I talked with other supervisors, they already implement this idea, because I want to see the pros and it's going. They told me they have more actually positive results. And when I see ideas like this, I want to implement new ideas that work, that make sense and make positive results. You see, some townships still have policies and ideas from the 60s and 70s. We are in 2023. Things has been changed, but I want to make or recommend changes that are positive. So this is a pilot. This is idea for 6 months. And you have a great comment, but I want you keep in mind that you always send me emails, ask me questions, and I will reply very, very quick to you, and make sure somebody reply their emails quick to you. Before this meeting, I sent an email to all the board members here asking if you have any questions. Even if you cannot come, please send me any questions. And you were the only trustee that didn't send me any questions, except everybody else. I was expecting if you have any questions or concerns about the 4-day work week, and you didn't. And I respect that. I'm fine with that. And everybody else here reply and ask their questions and concerns, and I made sure every trustee that sent a question got an answer. But you didn't send me anything, so I said, okay, you maybe are okay with that. And I'm fine with that. I just want to, that I made sure that everybody knew about the 4-day week, that we're gonna be talking about it. We have a special meeting. We got input by experts. It wasn't just like got random people, the people that attend and came and brought good information, and this something is a pilot. What that means is it's only for 6 months. In November, we're gonna take a look like, our attorney explain about how the 3 full-time elected officials work. Quite frankly, I work more than 40 hours a week, and people knows that. Even Saturdays and Sundays. During the winter, I have phone calls. I've been the phone to the fire chief and DPW sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, whether if we wanna close or wanna take action during the bad conditions. We, the 3 of us, Carrie, when they have elections, she work more than 40 hours, maybe 60, 80, or sometimes 24 hours, because I recall during the election and all that. I mean, everybody here work hard. This job is not 40 hours a week for the 3 full-time elected officials here. And we try to provide and bring the best service for our community. That's all I have to say. Okay, Treasurer Brown.
It's always, I always like to hear input from board members. And I am familiar with the comment from someone who said that we should recuse ourselves because we benefit. We don't benefit at all from it, and I'll explain why. We're elected. We don't have vacation days. We don't have sick days. We don't punch a clock. We get paid. I will tell you, we had a supervisor here between 2010 and 2012 who didn't show up once for 2 years. He got paid every single time. The only thing you can do when that happens is you can recall him. Now, he maybe had some issues or whatever, but I remember watching board meetings, and I'm sure Ron and Jose remember, because there were a lot of people that ran when you have elected officials who don't show up. But that's the way it's written. We got elected. And so there's no benefit. If we want Fridays off, we don't have to come in on Fridays. I will tell you, these guys are all here, and if you come by in the morning, you're gonna see our cars here every morning and working late. So we certainly don't take advantage of the situation, because we know what that looks like, because we saw it in the past. So from benefiting us, this is 100% about the employees, and I think I said that pretty clear when we first talked about it. I'm trying to find a way to do something good for the employees that I also think will benefit residents. But so I appreciate, and I know that comment was made, and I'm happy to share that understanding of that.
Yes, Trustee Element.
I have a question that popped up. I don't know if this is the right place, but it's almost a question for Nancy, I guess, related to this. It popped in my mind that we just went through negotiations, correct?
Correct.
Signed a contract. Now it might be changed if you add this. Does it open it up again to whole negotiations? Because technically you're adding another benefit. And if this was already there, let's say 3 months ago, they might have not asked for something else. Do you understand what I'm saying? So does this open up fully that we talk about more things, or it's kind of just like you already signed that, that's the way it is, and they're just getting a bonus?
That is a great question. This does not open up the contract. As a matter of fact, the language in the agreement with the union says that this is the full understanding of the agreement, and that it automatically incorporates those terms into the collective bargaining agreement in the event that it was adopted, so we don't have to open it up and redo it then. The only thing that we would talk about moving forward would be those holiday observation dates that fall on a Friday, where should they be reobserved?
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, Carrie?
I just wanted to comment that I think personally how I would benefit from this 4-day work week, and saying that as elected officials we would benefit, is I would truly say that I would benefit by having good employees and retaining the great staff that we have now. That's how I would say that I would benefit as an elected official and also as a resident. And it is very, very important to me that we keep the staff that we have. And I have been involved since I've been back here since 2019 in hiring new staff. And we've seen some staff come and go, but I will tell you personally the struggles that we've had, and even actually currently, in trying to get good employees to want to come here because of the benefits that we do or do not have. So that's how I would directly benefit, and I'm looking forward to giving back to the community with the great staff and the great elected officials in the board that we do have as a benefit. So.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourn.